what's this like for you as a coach? You've waited 6 months like the players have to get to tomorrow. You're finally here.
It's exciting to get the process going, and you can't, just like I said, when camp opens, you can't replicate, training camp. You can't replicate a regular season, and guys have had a lot of pent-up energy and excitement and adrenaline for the opener, and it's a whole different animal in itself. But to get in a rhythm now, to finally get the season, started and get back to a rhythm is something that is exciting, even beyond tomorrow's game. The fact that now you're working with a group and you have an actual regular season game to cut video in and go to work and practice and scheme and everything else for the next game and the next game and the next game. And, that journey, that, the challenges, you can guess, and you guess all summer what they'll be. And you're ready for so many different scenarios, but until you go head to head and evaluate your team in the moment of a regular season game, then it's the read and react, and that's the fun part for me and for our coaching staff.
Don, when it comes to Peyton Krebs, took so many steps when it comes to the defensive side of the game. Do you really anticipate more offense from that trio now that Peyton's taken that next step? And I know that Kyle and Zemgus have both mentioned that they want to produce more offensively, even despite the fact they were one of the best defensive lines in the NHL last year.
Yes, they all have greater offensive capability, and it's not doing much different than they did last season, other than recognizing you're going to score goals different than another line. You're going to score them in a different way. You force turnovers in a different way. They force more turnovers than most lines, and now it's recognizing that you're doing that. And sometimes you get in those situations. You're on a fourth line or bottom six roll, and you create a scoring chance for yourself. But as you're following through on your shot, you're thinking about back check, and you miss the net, or so it's a little bit of a tweak of a mentality, and we believe they could score more. It's nice to hear you tell me that they now believe they can score more, and that is not with any compromise on what they do. They just created chances last year they didn't capitalize on, and we've talked about targeting and doing that. So we'll see how it goes, and I'm very confident they're capable of more offensively without giving up anything defensively.
Do you have a goalie plan in terms of wanting maybe to get them each a game in the early going or anything like that?
No real plan. I mean, we have scenarios in our head that, this could be the scenario, that could be the scenario. But as far as a plan, you everybody will tell you have a plan. You don't have information. So you can have a 500-page manual on what you want to do, but you got to read and react to where you are in game one and what the setting is for the next game and things. So, for us, we were ready for different scenarios, of course, but as far as planning out game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5, no, we have not. We will not commit to something like that because there's too much information you have to take in.
There's so much outside your locker room, so much chatter. The Sabres will be better this year. The Sabres will be a playoff team this year. If Devin Levi picks them up in the net, that's a lot to put on a guy who's played 7 games, no matter how good he's looked. But what can your team do defensively? As much as he's going to help you, how are you going to be able to help him reach those levels?
Bring greater attention and focus to defensive details. We saw this. You guys in the room know there were certain games and nights and situations where we turned a complete focus to defending better, and we did that. We resolved that issue. But as in the past, when you would talk, and I'd talk about in the past about some youth, you turn a focus to that, and then you lose a focus on something else because you just don't have experience. It's not a habit yet. It's not ingrained yet, and that takes time. That's the time we will have behind the scenes greater focus on defensive aspects Not that we're going to turn into a defensive team, but we can clean up things just by focusing better and concentrating better. Where you only have so many hit points with these guys before it's exhaustion. They're playing 82 games, so you can't throw everything in front of your team that you want to fix. You want to fix 15 things. You can't throw 15 things in front of your team. And so the hope is some of the things that we became really good at over the last couple of years, we don't have to bring in front of the team. Now we have the room to bring other things to their attention, and we won't lose the things they've become really good at. That's been a habit. And a lot of those things are the skill and offensive components that we wanted to build. So I think for us, we're focusing on different things, and one of them should help the goaltenders, if that makes sense.
We've talked so much over the last few years about earning the fans, back, and to have a packed house, how rewarding will that be for those guys?
Our guys love the energy in this building when this building is going, and you feel it on the bench. You feel that the players feel it. So you see that the players feel it. You see that, my job's a lot easier when the building's full. It just is. I mean, when there's energy in that building, and Sabre fans are very unique in that regard. I've been all 32 buildings as a scout, as a coach on different teams. This building is unique. It has its own identity. And when it gets going, I mentioned before, as a scout, this was the only building out of 31 or 30 at the time that I didn't leave until the final buzzer. Every scout leaves with 2-3 minutes left to get out of the parking lot. This is the only NHL building I stayed till the end because of the building and the fans and the noise and the chaos. And that you can't replicate that. And that is an energy boost to any, in our case, our players. It's a great advantage for me as a coach when that happens, and our players feed right off it.
Did you have any chance to watch part of Connor Bedard's debut last night?
I did. I watched quite a bit of Connor Bedard's, and I thought Chicago played very well, fearless, and just relentless. Because of that, there was no hesitation, and Connor, I thought, was very impressive in his debut. Very talented player.
What's your sense of, after having seen training camp and some preseason games, just the comfort level that Connor Clifton and Eric Johnson have in your system?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I think both those players, Clifton and Eric Johnson, are much more comfortable, but they still haven't had regular season games and situations and scenarios. They've had pretty much every scenario in practice. But it's different when you get in the game. There's moments you may second guess yourself and that hesitation. And so I think they just need game reps to kind of rid any potential hesitation. Not saying they'll have any, but it would be natural for you to have it. They're both guys that care so much that they don't want to make mistakes. But I love where they're at. They've engaged with a level of intensity that's rubbed off on their peers. They bring it today on the penalty kill. They did not give the power play very limited time and space. And, when Eric Johnson's running at you and you're a power play guy, you're probably not complaining that the power play is going against you too hard, which sometimes happens in an NHL practice. The power play guys think, well, easy on us here. It's a practice. And, that's not the case with either of those two, and that's welcomed. Go ahead, Bill. You overrid Jordan. Louder. You were louder, Bill.
That usually doesn't happen. Having been around Devin now for about a month, and then going back to last season, and just all your interactions with him, what tells you that he's ready for what he's going to be going through, facing this year?
Well, traits of adaptability and traits of consistency, which would be skill, work habits, adaptability. He's always looking for how am I going to get better. So every situation that happens to him, even if it's adverse, he's like, this is great. I can fix that because he's intelligent, he's athletic, and it's a way to be better now. If I fix that, I'm even better. So it's a whole attitude combined with an appetite. And high skill, obviously high skill, where none of those would matter. If you're not good enough, those traits are intangible traits are great, but you got to be good enough. And he's a talented goaltender.
Matthias the other day, go back to the penalty kill you mentioned, was kind of describing a situation where Eric was almost helping Marty tell guys where to be on the penalty kill. Is that something you've seen, like his experience kind of translating that way, maybe on the penalty kill, but in general?
Yes, and we've had so Eric Johnson helping out on the penalty kill is you got a guy that's been in Colorado that went through ups and downs in Colorado, lots of downs actually, lots of downtime in Colorado before they got it going, and they win a cup. And so he's a guy that remembers details about the downtimes, about the doubt, about the misery, about failures, and very in tune with that. It's a big part of. It was the bonus. We wanted to get a very good defenseman in here, in that slot. And the bonus is what I just said. He has all of that, and it's relevant to our situation now. So much like I rely on Kyle Okposo and I relied on Craig Anderson last year, we will rely a lot on Eric Johnson from the coaching side of things and helping us convey messages, and even listening to him. And I wasn't in Colorado for 10 years or whatever it was. He was. So there's valuable information for us as coaches that's right there for us as well.
How difficult is it to prepare a PK when there's not a lot of video and there's not a lot of scouting ahead of time to start a season?
Yeah, the difficult or challenge we have is ridding ourselves of negative and worry and concern from last season when it was, less than what we wanted. But for us, it's power plays, there's a lot of standard movement in power plays, and then you add different skills. So if you have Connor McDavid in that position with the same movement, it's different than the next guy maybe. but there are patterns you pick up and patterns to coverage. So you work on that, and then as you go into pre-scout, you're tweaking it. Maybe we can be more aggressive against this player than the player in that slot yesterday. Or maybe you have to respect him differently. So you're talking about those scenarios as potential now, and then when you can get into the game after game, it's actual. But for us, our biggest challenge, and I put it in front of our team, was if you don't have the mentality and the psychological component, and I mentioned to this room last year, when you fall behind in a power play, you start identifying with how you can get scored on instead of how you can kill it, and that compounds problems. And I felt that was a real challenge for us last year. It's hard to get out of that when you're in it. The mentality you have to get right. And one thing I did present to the players and the team was our penalty kill percentage on the season last year was 73%, 73 point something. And nobody likes it. Nobody in this room could say they likes it like that. Very simple. You don't like it. The two teams that went to the Stanley Cup final last year, Florida and Vegas, their penalty kill in the playoffs to get to the finals was 70% for one of them and 71% for the other. And Vegas won a cup. Both penalty kills were worse than ours in the regular season. So we sit here in the regular season and say, that's going to kill us. It's never going to make it. We're never going to make the playoffs. You can never win with that. And you had two teams in the finals whose numbers were worse than ours last year. So getting the mentality right is really important. Neither of those two teams, even though their penalty kill was poor, ever thought that was going to lose in the game. They find other ways to win. And so for us on the penalty kill, we'll spend more time and more focus on it until we get those numbers better or right or where we want. I think the acquisition of Eric Johnson and personnel changes and Connor Clifton and a little bit more depth there will help significantly. And I think there's a lot of other things that'll help. But that's an initiative we can now move on. Because we have other initiatives that we don't have to move on as much anymore.
In regards to mentality, do you feel confident, comfortable that this group will handle playing at home better than it did the season ago?
Yes, I do. That doesn't mean it can happen right out of the gate, but whatever happens the first 10, 15 games, I said it takes 10 to 15 to 20 games really for anybody in this league. I mean, the hockey, the first 10 games in the NHL is an absolute scramble compared to hockey after game 20. It is. And I said, the identity of teams really doesn't come until mid-November. and then you start seeing the identity of each team, and it's a build from that point. It's okay, take from this game, and these teams made these 3 mistakes, and every coach in the league shows the video of that, and they kind of fix those. And the next game, there's 3 other different kind of mistakes, and then they fix that, and then by 10, 11, 12 games through, you finally have that extra adrenaline out of the player systems because they're in a rhythm. It's not like they waited for 5 months for it. Now they're in a rhythm, and they can pay attention to a little bit more and gradually add. So it's a build, and I think we have to deal with our anxiety with respect to success at home. I thought we just pressed. As soon as one bad situation happened at home, we wanted to resolve it immediately. And when you do that, you try to impose your will on a game, you become more vulnerable. And we paid the price for those attempts.
You know,